Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey, welcome back to the big show. Glad to have you on board. Happy New Year for those of you who were off yesterday and you missed it. You know, I wanted to try and have a nice, chipper, happy start to the new year, but a couple terror attacks kind of get in the way of that. And by terror attacks, you know, it meets the literal definition of terror attacks. It was acts of violence or intimidation with a political agenda attached to it. And so with my first guest, David Hamilton, welcome back. I know this isn't a great reason to have you on, but you're a good guy to talk to in such times. I mean, this meets the definition of terrorism. Am I wrong, David?
Well, it was rather clear to most of us that this was a terror-related, especially, as you said, the other day when you find an ISIS flag in the back of someone's truck. That's probably a good indicator. I guess the lesson we learned is if you don't know, don't say. You had a little snippet where spokesperson talked about all the conflicting messages. And it's just really clear the FBI doesn't take over investigations where there's a bombing or something like that or a mass murder unless it is a terrorist attack. So when the agent in charge said that it wasn't, that just didn't make any sense at all. And I would encourage them not to, if they don't know, to just not say anything until they do know.
Well, and that's the reason why it's gotten so much criticism is she so definitively, she didn't say we haven't confirmed whatever she said.
This is not a terrorist event.
Yeah, so really? The guy with the ISIS flag coming out of the back of his truck, she knew that at the time he said it. She knew he was of Middle Eastern descent. She knew that all the things that any normal person would say, oh, yeah, it's probably a terror attack. But still, she just goes out there and lies to your face.
But one has to ask about the motivations. What would drive this? You know, if you do any profiling at all, even whether it's a criminal or a leader, what drives them to say that? So there's some motivation, and I can't quite understand it or articulate it, but something drives some of our leaders to want to not make these cases, which seem to be readily apparently to be a terrorist attacks, to not be. And I think part of the after action review that does need to be done is what motivated her to say that in that situation when the common sense person would say, no, this is clearly terrorism.
Right. And well, there's some built-in incentive there born on the people whose job it is to keep us safe to not admit they did something wrong when they didn't keep us safe. So I don't know. It just feels really dishonest, the whole thing. And then you look at what's going on in Las Vegas, and if this guy did this, explosion and self-immolated, or probably killed himself before the truck went up. If he did it in front of Trump Tower to have a political message attached to it, again, that meets the definition of terrorism.
Yeah, no, I actually believe that this probably is a military veteran suicide. And I don't really believe, based on what we know now, that the two are connected. They're just unfortunately correlated. But absolutely, you don't blow yourself up in front of a Trump facility in a Tesla at this time in our political situation unless you're trying to send a message. So clearly he was sending a message. I think it's going to be interesting to find out if this was in some form of a protest against our Afghanistan withdrawal and how that was botched by the most recent administration.
Now, that would be interesting because we did have the active duty airman self-immolate last year, yelling Free Palestine while he burned to death. So we have seen sort of the suicide activism from an active military member. It's just been for a different cause.
Different cause. Yeah, this gentleman, 19 years, stellar service, Green Beret, no indications. Doesn't appear that he was weaponized in some way by jihadist mentality. So it is possible. Again, if you don't know, don't say. We can speculate. At least say you're speculating if you don't know. And I would not be surprised if this had to do with something to do with the hardships that he endured while he was there, the loss, and maybe feeling that the sacrifice that we made over there was wasted.
Well, that would be interesting because that would almost be like a right-wing message. Most of the terrorism you see is somehow connected to Team Blue constituencies. And I know at America's Future Series, you guys are supposed to be nonpartisan. But David Hamilton, there are some weird connections here. They were both Army veterans. I mean, he was active duty, but there's the Army connection. They both spent some time at Fort Bragg, and I think they were there at the same time in like 2009 or something weird like that. They both rented trucks.
We may find that they knew each other.
Right.
We may find that out. We don't know. But I wouldn't characterize it as being blue or red. If someone who experienced the Afghanistan war and lost friends and both Afghans and Americans, and they were upset about how we botched that withdrawal and did this as a political response. I have a lot of friends who feel like their sacrifice and their friends' sacrifices were wasted. I, of course, told them that they weren't. For 20 years, that region was safe. It was not exporting terrorism. Women and minorities lived much better lives. We projected power. So people need to not think that that Afghan experience was a complete waste. It wasn't. A lot of good was done. But I know a lot of veterans don't agree with that, and they feel very bad about it.
Well, you know, the botched withdrawal was a Biden thing. Why would you go blow yourself up in front of Trump Tower?
Yeah, that part doesn't make any sense at all. But maybe, I mean, if you want to get attention, this got attention.
All right, David Hamilton, is there going to be more attacks?
There will absolutely be more attacks, unless we get rid of all trucks and rental trucks, et cetera. I guess, we have to ban those too, right?
Right. We need to get a truck registration, maybe background checks, close the truck show loophole. Yeah,
so this is a mental health and also a political issue. People are being agitated and triggered a great deal because of all the negativity in our social media, and that's part of the thing. But we have to do a better job taking care of people mentally. We have to come together as a nation better. We can't sow discord and make everything partisan. We like to say at the America's Future series that the single existential threat we face is partisanship. If we can't figure out a way to get along together, we can't solve the really big ticket problems, and we will spend all of our time doing the work of our enemies, which is tearing each other apart.
All right. When do you have next events coming up for America's Future series?
Planning one. Be on the lookout in March or April. Hoping to have Governor Abbott here. Look at our website to keep updated on that. That is americasfutureseries.com, and we'll be raising money for worthy military causes. And we should be at South by Southwest with our Dual Use Technology Summit on March 7th.
Sounds good. Thank you very much, David Hamilton, America's Future Series. All right, I'm going to ask you some of the same questions I just asked David. We knew yesterday the New Orleans mass killer is a Muslim terrorist. As we learn more on the Las Vegas truck bomber, the question is, are they connected? Because there's a lot of coincidences. They both use trucks. They both use electric vehicles. They both use the same app to rent the trucks. They both have Army experience at Fort Bragg. And I don't know. Did they act alone? Do you think they're connected? Do you think both of them acted alone? And will there be more attacks? Call me, 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'll answer those questions next on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome back to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. We have a little bit of new information on the New Orleans terror suspect, a lot of new information on the one that happened in Las Vegas, both of those yesterday. Just a great start to the new year's 2 terror attacks coming at you. How fun! And let's go through some of the new stuff that we learned about the guy in Las Vegas. We know his name. Matthew Livelsberger is his reported name, which is, I've never heard of anyone named Livelsberger, but if you want to throw some stereotypes in there, Berger, I guess he's German or of German descent somewhere. So there's no it doesn't carry the same suspicions with it as the other guy's name with Shamsud Din Jabbar. You have to suspect, well, that guy sounds like he's of Middle Eastern descent and therefore quite likely to be of Muslim heritage and very well might be connected to his motivation. Can't make the same thing here. Some weird parts about this story, like details that I don't even know why they're there. He drove in from Colorado. He got in a couple of guns on December 30th, 2024. He went and parked in front of the Trump building in Las Vegas, set up his truck to explode, and then shot himself in the head. We think he shot himself in the head before the truck exploded. Okay. So also packed in the truck, a bunch of weird stuff. Gasoline, fireworks. And when I say fireworks, they're described as the mortars. And military guys, not like the real mortars, like clear. The ones that you buy you probably bought some earlier this week at the fireworks stand that you put in the tube. Had a bunch of those. When you see the video, and you should probably limit how many of these videos you watch. You're going to make yourself neurotic. You see a bunch of, dare I say, pretty little colorful explosions around it. There's the initial explosion, and I think that sent some of the fireworks in different directions. And I use the term pretty, but I mean, there were fireworks. You could tell it wasn't just a regular old bomb. There was fireworks in there. Both of these guys served in Afghanistan. They were there at the same time in 2009, but we do not have confirmation or really any details on whether or not they knew each other. Both of these guys were also at Fort Bragg. I believe they said they were there at the same time, but I know they both had crossed through there because Matthew Livelsberger is still in the military and just reached some ranking. I don't know what the rankings are. Eagle Scout, I don't know. But the guys that know these things sound like it's a pretty prestigious position and something that you wouldn't take lightly, something you have to work hard to get to, something that a lifer would dream about doing. And so he's like a captain or something in the special forces. But I really don't know what his motive is. You heard David Hamilton from America's Future series say this could be him trying to send a message about the botched withdrawal in Afghanistan, but that was a Joe Biden mistake. Why would you go blow yourself up in front of the Trump place? Me and a bunch of other internet sleuths right before the show, when we found out this guy's name in the press conference, almost immediately the ninjas online found his girlfriend's Facebook page, and we all got to go through that. There's a bunch of anti-Trump posts and pro-Obama posts and pro-Biden posts, and it's nothing bloodthirsty, bomb-making, weather underground level of politicization. Politicized. But she was dedicated Team Blue. Did she radicalize him? Was he one of these people? Was this politically motivated? Why else would you do that in front of Trump Tower on a holiday? So I know very little about this guy's motivation. You and I and everyone pretty much knows why the Shamsu Din Jabbar guy did it. We've seen quite a few other people with the similar motivations do it, even recently, like 14 days ago, not even, in Germany. But it's happened here before. Waukesha Parade. There was the other one at the Bastille Day in Nice, France, where the guy ran through the crowd and killed like 100 people. Yeah, we've seen this before. This isn't really anything that new. Terror attacks pop off. And if it doesn't happen with the truck, that still happens where the San Bernardino Muslims went and shot up their Christmas party. The Muslim terrorists went and shot up the Pulse nightclub. That was sold to you as an anti-LGBT attack, but it was really a Muslim guy who was upset about Obama's foreign policy in Syria because, he was pro-ISIS too. There's a connection there. So whenever they tell you this guy's a lone wolf or he acted alone, now he's part of a larger movement. He's part of actually a pretty worldwide movement that's, he's part of a community of about 1.8 billion people. But let me give you a couple of sound bites that I think you need to hear. Number one, listen to CNN just lament the fact that people are calling this a terror attack.
Right. I mean, I've sadly covered too many tragedies like this, and it struck me because normally you don't come right out of the gate and label it terrorist attack or not.
Yeah, you do.
Juliet, you say we're looking into all possibilities because it's so early. Yeah. You don't really know.
No, we knew.
And there were these explosive devices. This suspect.
Right. Remember. This was said last night. So she knew that the guy showed up with an ISIS flag flying out the back of his truck. She knew it was a man that was clearly of Middle Eastern descent with a very Muslim-sounding name and a 30 minutes worth of investigation by the people on the ground had the answers for everyone. We all know what the motive is. We all know that to identify him as a U.S. Army vet and a U.S. citizen is quite dishonest, or at least it's disingenuous, I should say. You're taking two aspects that kind of sound like sort of Team Reddish and acting like that's his motivation. Meanwhile, if you said he was of Middle Eastern descent, he was a Muslim of Middle Eastern descent, everybody knows, oh, okay, so this is a Muslim terrorist attack. You just can't put the two in the same sentence. Anyway, let her continue because her guests are just as silly too. This was CNN last night.
Shot at police, hit 2 police officers, 10 people are killed, more than 30 in the hospital. I mean, this is horrific, Juliet. How do you see this?
Yeah, I just think the mayor made a mistake. Let's just, in some ways move on. It has to be clarified. I do not think she should have come out. You actually saw the people behind her sort of flinch. She was speaking as a politician and as someone who governs the city, that this was terrorizing. It was terrible. It was terror for those there. But we are now in the investigation and prosecution stage.
The mayor of New Orleans made a mistake. This is what the mayor of New Orleans says, that she said was a mistake. You tell me if this was accurate or not.
Good morning. First of all, we do know that the city of New Orleans was impacted by a terrorist attack.
That's wrong? She made a mistake? No, she was accurate, CNN. And by the time you have this conversation last night, you already know when you're saying this on CNN that there was an ISIS flag flying out the back. You already know that this guy's been radicalized. You already know what the ideology is behind him, why he did it, who he did it for. And what are you still trying to pretend? That is so dishonest. Like, why can't we sue people like that for fraud? Maybe that should be the question. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Who is more accurate? LaToya or Aletha Duncan, the FBI lady?
This is not a terrorist event.
Oh, really? FBI? That's what they said. They came out. Remember, when Aletha Duncan from the FBI said that, she knew about the flag. She knew his name. She knew his background. She knew he's of Middle Eastern descent. She knew he was a Muslim. She knew it was a terror attack when she said that. And now you have the FBI saying, well, we currently believe the suspect acted alone. Well, you know what? Don't buy it for a second. You're lying. I have to assume you're lying. I would be an idiot to see how you treated all of us yesterday, and you came out, and she said that more than 3 hours after it happened, came out and straight up lied to all of your faces. Why? Well, she doesn't want her. It doesn't fit the narrative. Remember, they've been warning you about white rural rage this entire time. They've been worried. They've been warning you about the fascists and the Nazis that are coming for you, and they're dangerous and they're violent, and you need to be scared of them. That's why you have all these people crying in their TikTok and shaving their head, and they think the world's going to end. They think they're going to be put in camps. The Handmaid's Tale. Meanwhile, we do actually have terror attacks, and what's one of them? Oh, one of them's against Trump Tower. Obviously not Team Red. What's the other one? Oh, an angry Muslim taking a shot at people partying. Yeah, obviously not Team Red either. 800-288-9227 if you have any comments on that. Because the big question is, are they linked? Is there going to be more? I'd like to hear from you. 800-288-9227. Coming up next, you'll hear from RT Trevino. Gas prices are dropping, and he says they could probably drop a little bit more this year. Get ready for some good news on The James Show. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there. Welcome to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Happy New Year, sort of. A couple of terror attacks have the headlines looking ugly. I was pretty optimistic about 2025 until about, 6 hours into it. Things didn't look so cool after that. Will there be more? Jay in Las Colinas, you're on WBAP. What do you think?
I know there's going to be more. There's a lady I've been listening to for 5 years, Julie Green, Ministry International. She's a prophetess, hasn't missed in 5 years.
Oh, man, I've been looking for a good prophet. What's her name?
Julie Green, Ministry International.
Julie Green.
JGMinternational.org. And she said not only are more attacks planned, but our government hates us so much they have literally paid these people to come in here and attack us. But God is going to protect his children, and everything they have planned for us is going to turn on them and destroy them. All these criminal rhinos and Democrats are going to be exposed and removed. All the billionaires that are doing evil to us, all the sex trafficking is going to be exposed, and the world's eyes are going to be open to the evil that's gone on for centuries.
What else has she predicted correctly?
Like one that blew my mind. She said, God said Poseidon's going to be in the news, but I don't know why. The next week, the largest Triton Russian sub went down carrying the largest ICBM torpedoes, which are called Poseidon. But there's so many more.
Wow.
She said that the Statue of Liberty, which is ISIS, it's a sex statue, will be brought down very soon. The Washington Monument, which is a phallus, and most of the monuments in Washington will be brought down. The only one that may remain standing is the Lincoln, because it's the only one that doesn't have satanic or Masonic or evil signage and symbols hidden in it.
Well, look,
man, she posts every prophecy online, so there's nowhere for her to hide. I've seen thousands of them.
See, that's one of the reasons why the QAnon stuff caught on so well with the segment of society, is because whoever that dude is, whoever was pretending to be that guy, he actually made some predictions that came true. He predicted, there's going to be the largest pedophile ring of the elites is going to get busted. And then Jeffrey Epstein got arrested a couple months later. And so, while some of these conspiracy theories can definitely go down a rabbit hole and fall off the edge of reality, a lot of them are based on some kernel of truth out there. I'll check out Julie Green. I've been looking for a good prophet. I was kind of hoping
on her website. She's got them all listed there. So like I said, she can't hide from what she said.
All right. Well, and look, some of that's easily dismissed as, oh, really? You predicted another terror attack? That's brilliant. Of course there's going to be another one. That's like predicting another New Year's Eve is coming. That's like predicting the Cowboys aren't going to win the Super Bowl. Oh, that one kind of hurt, didn't it? Joe Biden came out and gave a statement at the White House after the terror attacks in New Orleans and Las Vegas. I had Garrett pause it, and it's just a coincidence that he's going to cough here. But let's listen to some of this. This is your president.
Just come from the meeting, not just to spend, while we prepare these remarks, better part of an hour from my Homeland Security team. The number of people killed in New Orleans has risen to 15, including the attacker. 35 people were injured. Today, the FBI briefed me that as of now, we have no information that anyone else is involved in the attack. They've established that the attacker was the same person who planted the explosives in those ice coolers in 2 nearby locations in the French Quarter just a few hours before he rammed into the crowd with his vehicle. They assessed he had a remote detonator in his vehicle to set off those 2 ice chests. So there's no question that, remember all the talk about other people were involved, placed in, they have him. They have established he's there, and even established that he had a detonator to explode those ice chests. As I said yesterday, the attacker posted several videos just several hours before the attack, indicating his strong support for ISIS. Federal law enforcement and the intelligence community are actively investigating any foreign or domestic contacts or connection that could possibly be relevant to the attack. And so we're also continuing to investigate whether or not there's any connection between the New Orleans attack and the explosion in Las Vegas. As of now, they've just been briefed. They have not found any evidence of such a connection thus far. I've directed them to keep looking. The individual who rented the truck that exploded in Las Vegas also served as active duty U.S. Army. And the FBI is working with the Department of Defense on investigating, including the service members' possible motives and all those he worked with, who served with him, what things he'd say and do. I directed my team to accelerate these investigations so we have answers to our unanswered questions. They're making every single resource available to get the job done. And we're going to share the facts as soon as I learn them so the American public doesn't have to wonder. In the meantime, like I said last night, New Orleans is a city of tremendous spirit. You can't keep it down. You really can't. And we're seeing that today. The Sugar Bowl is back on. Kickoff is going to take off very shortly. If I don't get this damn thing done, we're going to be in real trouble. And the FBI has handed control of Bourbon Street back to local officials. Security of the area has been reinforced. And they should be open for business later today, the Bourbon Street.
All right. We'll hit pause here. If he takes some questions, we'll listen to it. If he says anything that I think you'd be interested in, we'll be sure to pass it along after the news update here. 800-288-9227 if you have any comments, thoughts, predictions on the 2 terror attacks that happened yesterday. Will there be more? Are they connected? There are some weird connections here. I don't know if these guys knew each other, but we'll go over it coming up on the James Show. And also, we're going to talk to an immigration attorney talking about this idea. The next question I'm asking you is if there's a mixed family. Some people are saying, well, they should deport the illegal anyway. And if the family wants to stay together, well, maybe they can go with them. What do you think about that? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Welcome to the big show. If you have any comments, feel free to jump in on the conversation at any point. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. Now, the reporting on this, since this just happened yesterday, this is also fluid, and so much of this is going to be overturned by subsequent revelations. But from what we know thus far, in the New Orleans situation, the FBI says that there's no other suspects involved in the New Orleans attack. Okay, the problem is this the same FBI that came out and said, hey, this sure isn't a terror attack? That's right. We don't know the motive, but we've ruled out terrorism.
This is not a terrorist event. What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found, and we are working on confirming if it's a viable device or not.
Yeah, well, that's not, that doesn't determine whether or not it's terrorism. If it's violence or intimidation for a political agenda, boom, it's terrorism. You knew, Aletha Duncan, when you said that there was an ISIS flag flying out the back of his truck. You knew he was a man of Middle Eastern descent. At this point, when she said that, it had already been more than 3 hours after the event. She probably already knew that he had been overseas. She probably already knew that he had been radicalized. And so we have the guy, the Bourbon Street, New Orleans attack. He's being classified, depending on what platform you look at, as a U.S. citizen or a U.S. Army vet, or both Army vet and U.S. citizen, which is not the determining factor, not the defining characteristic you should be using. Oh, really? He ran through there because he was upset about what he learned in the Army? No, he's a Muslim terrorist. He's a Muslim terrorist. That's who attacked. Not a U.S. citizen, not a U.S. Army vet, a Muslim terrorist. See, when you add that information, you actually get to add in the ideology that inspired him to do the horrible act, the actual motivation, the motive behind the attack. It's a much better descriptor, especially in this situation. So what we have is his brother. We're now, according to the New York Times, lives in Beaumont, and the New York Times supposedly talked to him. Abdur Jabbar. He's only 24. His brother that ran through the crowd yesterday, Shamsud Din Jabbar, 42. Check this out. This is the piece I wanted you to hear. The brother says they were raised Christian, but his brother Shamsud had converted to Islam. Whoa. Well, that puts an interesting layer on it. So you have this guy who, when he was a Christian, no acts of violence, converts to Islam, terror attack. Now, I'm not saying that he represents Islam. I'm not saying he represents all Muslims or all people who convert to Islam turn out to be like this. But you don't see the opposite. I haven't seen the opposite. Show me the Muslim guy who converted to Christianity and then goes into a Muslim country and starts mowing people over with cars. Do we have the Christian terrorist? Do we have any Christian terrorists out there? Because we have anti-Christian terrorists. We have the trans girl that went and shot up her Christian school because it was so Christian-y and bigoted against trans people. We have the Free Palestine trans lady that went and shot up Joel Osteen's church with the explicit motivation being her anti-Christian bigotry. We had another school. What was that, in Georgia? Or no, the Madison, Wisconsin one? Another Christian school shot up? Yeah, there you go. Life Christian School. Another one shot up. How many anti-Christian attacks do we have to have here? We don't even have a word for it. Anyone use the term Christophobic with this guy? No? We don't even have a term for it. That's sort of a rhetorical question. But here you have a guy. You have two brothers. One of them's Christian, not killing anyone. The other one converts to Islam, starts killing people. You know, if we had people that were yelling Roll Tide, committing acts of violence, like we have people yelling Allahu Akbar, committing acts of violence, we would look into the University of Alabama. We would look into that whole society, that whole culture, and be like, y'all went off the rails somewhere, and we need to do something about it. This whole Roll Tide thing, I'm tired of hearing that around a bloodbath. And there would be some condemnation for the Alabama Crimson Tide. Why not here? Why do you treat them like a special protected class? Why do you treat them different than you would treat it if it was a Christian terrorist or if it was a guy in a MAGA hat? You sent 7 FBI agents to go investigate Bubba Wallace's garage pull string because someone tied the tiny little string like a noose. I mean, I guess it looked like a noose that could hang a G.I. Joe. It was like the size of your thumb. But the mere thought that there could be some bigotry from Team Red gets the biggest headlines, gets the biggest response, gets the biggest story. Here, you have the motivation. You know why he did it. You know what drove him to kill people, and you don't want to admit it. You don't want to call him that. You don't even want to say Muslim terrorist. You don't want to say he's a Muslim man. You don't want to say he's a terrorist. He's a U.S. Army veteran and a U.S. citizen? Yeah, look out for those U.S. citizens. Thanks for narrowing it down, news outlets. So we also have the fact that this guy actually had a pretty good career. He was in IT. So it's not like this is some poverty-stricken guy who's just been ground and driven underfoot by a society that hates him and has been discriminating against him. This isn't like a Mark Essex situation where the Mark Essex shooting? You might not know that one, Garrett. There's some Black Panther got up in New Orleans in like 1970, 1971, something like that. Shot a bunch of people from the top of the Howard Johnson Hotel. They had to shoot him from a helicopter. And I'm not saying I excuse it. I almost understand that. He was a guy who went off to Vietnam and then came back and was still living through the Democrat policies across the South that discriminated against black people. Yeah. I could understand why he would be a little upset. This guy, no. This guy was raised Christian, seemed to have a decent life, seemed to have a decent career. It's the version of Islam that he learned. 800-288-9227. 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Well, hey there, all you beautiful Texans. Welcome back to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. So what's going on with the terror attacks? Not a fun way to start the year. Not my preferred way to start the year. And then on top of that, the FBI is already being shady about it. And Lisa left the comment on Facebook. The FBI is not telling us everything. Why? Cannot even believe them. I know, because they started this whole thing with a lie. They started off their coverage yesterday. Within 3 hours of the event happening, Aletha Duncan from the FBI comes out and lies to your face.
This is not a terrorist event. What it is right now is their improvised explosive devices that was found.
Yeah. So now we're just learning more and more. What we learned since the James Show started is this guy was raised a Christian, converted to Islam. Now, she may not have known that at the time she said it, but what a pompous thing. How could you rule it out? If at best you didn't know, you could have taken some context clues from, I don't know, maybe the ISIS flag that's flapping out of the back of his truck. But no, the FBI is not going to be much help here. And if your distrust of them has gotten a little lower, it's probably not low enough. My next guest, Mark Herrera, an expert in crowd control. The one question that we have a lot of people asking is, how do we keep ourselves safe from a situation like this? Well, Mark, unless you're just going to stay out of crowds for the rest of your life, I don't think there's a whole lot you can do.
Hey, James, first of all, thank you so much for what you do and appreciate you having me on the show. Listen, I'm going to be very fully transparent. And I pretty much, when it comes down to protecting the number one asset, and that's people, I've done probably 508 live training sessions around the world, and I believe you got to have good information, good facts, and you can't mislead the people. And that's so important. If you don't know something, don't say it, the bottom line. But how do you protect yourself during these events? First of all, there is no guarantee, James, to zero risk. Absolutely none. If I sit here and I say, yep, we can find all security measures and we can put them in place to mitigate all the risks, I'm lying to you. I'm not going to lie to you. So how do people protect themselves? Listen, we rely solely on security details and the security posture of the venue to protect us, or the facility to protect us. I'm going to tell you right now, James, and you're probably going to agree with me, I don't rely on anybody solely to protect me. So I always advise folks, listen, you have a responsibility to build and develop your own emergency plan before you go to an event. You have a responsibility to assure your safety, well-being, and your family's well-being. Know where your entry points are, know where your exits are, know and understand certain behavioral patterns that don't fit the baseline, and know where your reporting mechanisms are. And most importantly, how do you evacuate in the event that you have to evacuate? And have you tapped into all the messaging that's available regarding the security precautions that are there within the facility, the venue, or the event that would potentially help you?
Yeah, and this one seems like such a hard one to game plan for because, you can arm yourself in case someone tries to mug you. You can carry a fire extinguisher in your car in case your car catches fire. I don't know how you would protect yourself or, other than just being spatially aware. How do you protect yourself from getting hit by a car in a crowd?
Oh, so James, that's a great question. So listen, first of all, I have a concern about the physical security barriers and the ballers that weren't in place. That's a big concern for me. When you have an area that is going to be heavy crowd density with very slow and non-fluid movement, how are you protecting these people? And barriers, protected barriers, would have potentially done that against a vehicle breach. So people need to be aware that when you hear the acceleration of a vehicle, listen, if your head's in the sand and you're checked out and you're not in tune with your environment, and most rely on the security posture of a facility, event, or the location, you're going to be behind the eight ball. You're going to miss the sound of an accelerated vehicle. You're going to miss the crowd surge of those that probably are in tune and maybe saw or heard something. So it's hypervigilance on behalf of those that are attending the events that's critical. That's important. The added layer is the security posture. That's just a secondary layer that protects the people that are at the events. But could you have heard the vehicle accelerating? Yes, you could have, potentially. It just depends. Most importantly, though, James, could you have prevented that vehicle from entering a high-speed area by having the proper barricades in place? 100%.
Well, I also think here's what we should do for starters. How about we pull over trucks that are flying the ISIS flag?
I couldn't agree with you more. That is a concern. What's a big concern is when people get misled as well, James. Don't get out in front of the people and tell them what you think may have happened. Listen, if I don't have the facts, I'm going to tell you I don't have the information. There's an ongoing investigation. But I believe that you have to be fully transparent with people, with communities. You got to let them know what you know without compromising the investigation. There's so much information that you can give them. But if you don't have it, don't go out and start publicly telling folks that this is most likely or this is what happened if you don't know that happened. That's misleading, James. So I couldn't agree with you more on that.
All right, Mark, you help a lot of people, venue managers, with security. Do we need to start putting up those concrete barriers in front of all, glass doors or points of entry?
Listen, the difference between an outdoor area versus an indoor venue, such as a stadium, an arena, a convention center, a performing arts center, they can control those spaces a lot better. When you have open air areas, outdoor facilities or venues, they're highly porous. So you have so many access control points, so many methods to breach and enter those facilities. At a minimum, you can protect the roadway, but you still have a lot of different access control points. The answer to your question would be the facilities, many of them that I've trained in, I've done 508, they have protected barriers in place so that it protects the queue outside. So from your access control point where people are going into an event or a facility, that checkpoint right there, if it's going slow and it starts to bottleneck and people queue outside, the venues and the facilities do a really great job in trying to provide protective barriers around the heavy queue that's taking place outside without compromising the security check going inside.
Right. I think of those big concrete barriers that are in front of like Best Buy and Guitar Center and the grocery store. And I just think, hey, New Orleans, maybe you want to protect Bourbon Street better than Best Buy.
That's funny you said that because I was kind of thinking along the same lines. You have these retail stores that are protecting people going in the front entrance. Come on. The ideology is out there to affect mass gatherings. It's coming across to our foreign lands through social media encrypted messaging that says, hey, homegrown violent extremists, here's the best place where you can attract mass gatherings and affect them adversely, whether it's through an explosive device or a vehicle breach, especially during those times of the year where they're high-profile events. You better get on top of that and have a unified command system in place where everybody knows their roles and process and you protect the mass gatherings to the best of your ability. And to be honest with you, in my opinion, I think there was a failure.
Mark Herrera, Director of Safety at the International Association of Venue Managers. Thank you for your time. IAVM.org. Is that your best contact, sir?
That's it, James.
All right. Thank you very much. Hope we don't have to have him on soon because we always talk to him after disasters. But I have a feeling that we'll be dipping into his expertise a couple more times in 2025. Some sad stuff. More details coming up about the New Orleans terror attack. And then a few new details on the truck that blew up in Las Vegas, obviously politically motivated since it happened in front of Trump Tower. Your thoughts, 800-288-9227. Are we going to be seeing this all year? 800-288-9227. I'm James Parker. It's News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Internet sleuths, I need your help. I want to see the videos. I want to see the Shamsud Din Jabbar videos. He posted a series of videos before he did the attack, and in some of them, I see a CNN report here where they say CNN has not reviewed the videos, but they did talk to officials who have seen the videos, and this is from FBI's counterterrorism division. So as eye-rolling as the FBI has been, coming out and lying, we know it's in a terror attack. Well, here they are the next day. Okay, yeah, he is a Texas-born U.S. citizen and an Army veteran. He did serve in Afghanistan, but his life has not been so smooth. He's had a couple of divorces. He has 2 kids with the first wife and a 6-year-old with the second wife. He said in the videos how he had thought about, he thought about one way that he could go out and make his splash is to kill his family and then kill himself. And that would make the news headlines and highlight the message that he wants to get out. And he says he wants to do this to focus on the war between believers and the disbelievers. Believers and disbelievers of what? Oh, that's right. His religion. This is a religious motivated attack. But he thought to himself, no, I'm changing my plans. I want the news headlines to not be about how I'm some crazy guy who killed my family. I want this to be a terror attack to where even the normal Christians out there and non-believers out there who don't submit to Islam, they will have to live the rest of their lives on edge knowing that Islam's coming for them. So there you go. He posted all these videos early before he did the attack. The time frame says that they were posted between 1:29 a.m. and 3:02 a.m. And then the attack happened at about 3:15. I saw a surveillance video. It said 3:14 a.m. on it. So there's quite a bit of planning here. We heard from the president, President Roomba, earlier that he actually had some detonators for the IEDs in his truck with him. And it looked like, this is just my guess here, I don't think he saw the crane he ran into. They had I don't know what you call it, a cherry picker, a crane. It's where you can stick a couple of people in this lift box, maybe with a camera, like a TV camera, and you can zip them up like 15, 20 feet. Well, it wasn't all the way up, but he plowed through this crowd. He had to go around the police car that was barricading the entrance to Bourbon Street, ran up on the sidewalk, hit most of the people there, barely got past where the bollards should have been, and then hit this little rental piece of construction equipment. I think he wanted to go as far as he could on Bourbon Street. I didn't think he would crash, or I don't think he expected to crash almost immediately. He didn't even make it 1 block. Thank God. And then he was going to blow up the IEDs that he had planted. I think that was the plan. So I don't know if he did the actual running over of people, crash, and then maybe he tried the button and it didn't work. So then he came out guns blazing and shot a couple cops. Or maybe in the crash, as it caught him off guard, maybe he hit his head and he just forgot about detonating it, or the cops were already there, so he whipped out his gun, or maybe he was unconscious for a second, or just maybe he lost the remote because it flew into the floorboard when he crashed. But there's a little bit more here, and it's not for nothing. Every little detail that's added that shows the level of premeditation and planning. That, you know, if you're trying to say, well, he acted alone, well, there's evidence piling up against that. He had a good job. He was making 6 figures in IT, But these are not skills that easily lend themselves to making IEDs with remote detonators. So where did he learn to do that? Where did he get the training for that? Where did he get the materials for that? Where did he get the big red button? Did he pick that up at fries.com? Because I know the store closed over off 635. Is that what happened? Did he get it off Amazon? Did he go re-rig something from Best Buy? Did he have help? You know, the more complex it gets, the more facets you add to the story, the more likely it is, just logically speaking, that he did not do all this all on his own. Did you see where he was living in Houston? We've seen that now. It's a crummy little single-wide trailer that has a privacy fence around it made out of, looks like corrugated tin. So he had himself like a little compound there, a little bunker for this time. It was pretty humble setup he had there, but also this is a guy who has 3 kids and 2 ex-wives. And I've never been divorced, but from my observation, that can be pretty expensive. That can be a drain on your monthly income. But he's also, now that we talked to the brother, we learned some things. The first wife has now been remarried. She has 2 kids with this guy, and they have prevented him from continuing to visit his kids because since he converted to Islam, the new, not baby daddy, the stepfather says he's been acting so erratic around them, they had to cut him off. So there were signs. How much of this is his conversion? Is he just an already crazy person who was looking for an ideology to seize onto that would already fit in and streamline well with his existing crazy thoughts? Or was he a pretty normal guy who had a religious conversion moment and just took it a little too far? I don't know. But if you turn on CNN or The View or most of the media, they're not even brave enough to have that conversation yet. They're too busy calling him a U.S.-born citizen and a U.S. Army vet, just over and over and over. And why do I stress that? Because they say things like, well, we try not to speculate at the beginning, you know, if it's a terror attack or who did it. This was CNN last night.
Right. I mean, I've sadly covered too many tragedies like this. And it struck me because normally you don't come right out of the gate and label it a terrorist attack or not. Okay.
Let me give you another example of what we had here. Do you remember the Times Square bomber in 2010? You may not remember it because the bomb didn't go off, but some guy had set up like a Nissan Pathfinder in Times Square, and he set up all like 500 pounds of explosives or whatever in there. And he set up the timer for it to go off. And when it was time for it to go off, it made a lot of smoke, but it didn't explode like he had hoped. And so some food cart vendors called the cops, and sure enough, they uncovered a huge bomb. Now, there was a little bit of time before we knew that there was a bomb there and we knew who did it. And let me give you, and this was just a few minutes it took for me to collect this in 2010. I made a montage of them blaming just regular old Americans, right-wing Americans, for something that turned out to be a Muslim-inspired terror attack that may have been funded by the Pakistani branch of ISIS. But this was the coverage immediately. When she says, we usually don't immediately call it terrorism or start speculating on who did it and why.
And there was part of me that was hoping this was not going to be anybody with ties to any kind of Islamic country, because there are a lot of people who want to use terrorist intent to justify bigotry. I mean, he's arrested. You know, I don't want to convict him before it's time to do so. He's the guy authorities say is involved.
If I had to guess 25 cents, this would be exactly that. Somebody who's homegrown, maybe a mentally deranged person or somebody with a political agenda that doesn't like the health care bill or something.
And if it can be confirmed that his house was foreclosed on in recent years, I mean, one would have to imagine that brought a lot of pressure and a lot of heartache on that family.
And the fact is that whether the guy who did this or the people who did this were with some Islamic terrorist group or whether they were some right-wing nut group, in one sense it doesn't matter.
Look, it could be right-wing domestic terrorists, but right-wing domestic terrorists tend to attack U.S. government buildings. They attack abortion clinics. They attack synagogues.
First of all, how do you rule out just a right-wing attack by somebody on the right who's mad at the establishment?
Oh, you don't. And you could easily find out that this was someone someone who was either had a right-wing agenda or was mentally disturbed.
First of all, it could be a Timothy McVeigh type, but this vehicle was close to a Viacom building, which owns MTV and Comedy Central, and you have the whole issue with South Park, which Islamic terrorists were threatening to have retribution for. So all of these things have to be looked at.
Yes. It could be those right-wingers. It could be the limited government people. It could be because we got foreclosed on anything but radical Islam. Anything. They would speculate. They were trying to be, well, this probably isn't no radical. You can't assume that. It's, probably a right-winger or something like that. Yes. Look out for those right-wing terrorists. Look out for those angry Presbyterians with a grudge. They're always blowing stuff up and killing people. Look out for the angry Lutheran firebombing. 800-288-9227, 800-288-9227. Coming up next, we're going to talk about the importance of showing up to work on time. I know that sounds obvious, but I don't think the latest generation's getting it. You'll hear about it next on The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.